Hey, stop. What are you doing out here?
I'm delivering papers, sir. I do this every morning.
At this hour? In this area?
Yes, sir. They're in my bag.
Drop it. Hands where I can see them.
I'm just trying to finish my route.
Officer Marcus Abbott, a patrol officer with 9 years on the Naperville Police Department and a documented history of racially biased stops in affluent neighborhoods, was driving through the Brookside neighborhood on a Saturday morning in early May when he saw a black 15-year-old boy on a bicycle with a delivery bag from half a block away, and immediately assumed the teenager was casing homes to burglarize. Abbott pulled up fast, without observing what the boy was actually doing, approached Jordan Carter aggressively, just 3 houses down from Jordan's own home, at 2897 Brookside Drive, refused to believe him when he said he was delivering newspapers for the Chicago Tribune, demanded to see identification from a 15-year-old child who was working before sunrise to help his widowed mother with bills. And when Jordan tried to show him his delivery bag with newspapers clearly visible and his reflective safety vest, Abbott dismissed the evidence. When Jordan explained he was 15 and didn't have a driver's license and tried to mention his mother was FBI, Abbott grabbed him, slammed him against a parked car, and handcuffed the 15-year-old newspaper delivery boy while newspapers scattered across the pavement. And when an elderly neighbor who was walking her dog came over and told Abbott that Jordan delivered newspapers every morning and his mother worked for the FBI, Abbott dismissed her, and when Jordan started crying and calling for his mother, Abbott shoved him into the back of his patrol car. What? What Officer Abbott didn't know was that Jordan's mother, Sarah Carter, was an FBI special agent with 16 years in the Bureau's Civil Rights Division, that she was in her kitchen making coffee and heard her son shouting from the street, that she would look out the window and witness Abbott slamming her son against a car, that her son had been delivering newspapers for 8 months to help pay bills after his father died 2 years ago, leaving behind $35,000 in medical debt, that she would walk out with her FBI badge and confront Abbott before he could drive away, and that Abbott's decision to profile and assault a grieving teenager honoring his dead father's work ethic would result in his termination, 2 years in prison, an FBI investigation into the Naperville Police Department, a $1.3 million settlement, and his name becoming forever associated with racist policing that sees a black child working and assumes he's a criminal. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And if you believe a 15-year-old should be able to deliver newspapers without being assaulted by a cop who refused to believe he had a job, like this video and subscribe. Jordan Carter was 15 years old and had been delivering the Chicago Tribune for 8 months. He woke up at 5:30 every morning, 7 days a week, because 2 years ago his father died of a heart attack at 39, leaving behind $35,000 in medical debt and a family that had budgeted for 2 incomes. Michael Carter had been a high school history teacher. He coached JV basketball. He helped Jordan with homework at the kitchen table every night. And then one Tuesday afternoon, he collapsed in the school parking lot after practice. Jordan was 13. One moment his father was there, the next moment he wasn't, and nothing made sense anymore. The medical bills came 6 weeks after the funeral. Treatment costs from the 6 months before the heart attack when they had been trying everything to save Michael's life, $35,000. Jordan's mother tried to hide them, but Jordan saw the stack of envelopes on the kitchen counter. He saw her crying at night when she thought he was asleep. He saw her skip meals so he could eat. Jordan's mother, Sarah Carter, was an FBI special agent making $95,000 a year. That sounds like a lot until you're suddenly a single parent with a mortgage designed for 2 incomes, medical debt payments of $600 a month, car payments, insurance, utilities, and a teenage son who needed to eat and have clothes that fit and go to school without worrying whether they could afford it. Sarah never asked Jordan to help. She worked overtime. She took extra assignments. She smiled when Jordan asked if they were okay and told him they'd be fine. But Jordan could see the math. He was 14 years old, but he wasn't stupid. His mother was drowning, and he was old enough to help. So Jordan got a paper route. He walked into the Tribune's distribution office on a Saturday morning and asked if they were hiring. The manager looked at this skinny 14-year-old kid and asked if he understood what the job required. Waking up at 5:30 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week. Rain or shine. No sleeping in, no excuses. Most kids quit after 2 weeks, the manager said. Jordan said he wouldn't quit. He needed the money. His family needed the money. That was 8 months ago. Jordan hadn't missed a single day, not when it rained, not when it snowed, not when his alarm didn't go off and he woke up late and had to sprint through his route to finish on time. He showed up every morning because his father had taught him that if you commit to something, you see it through. Every month, Jordan made $720 after taxes. He gave $430 to his mother for groceries and utilities. She cried the first time he handed her the money, told him he didn't have to do this, told him he should save it for himself. But Jordan insisted. His father would have wanted him to help. His father had always said that family takes care of family. Jordan put the remaining $290 into a savings account for college. In 8 months, he'd saved $2,320. It wasn't much, but it was his. He'd earned it. And someday, when he got to college, maybe community college, maybe a state school, if he could get scholarships, he'd know that he'd helped his family survive the hardest 2 years of their lives and still managed to save something for his future. And every morning at 5:30 a.m., when his alarm went off, Jordan clipped on his father's old bike helmet, pulled on his reflective safety vest, loaded 47 newspapers into his delivery bag, and rode through the same neighborhood his father used to drive through on the way to work. Because his father had always told him that if you want something in this life, you work for it. And Jordan wanted his family to be okay. This Saturday morning started like every other. Alarm at 5:30. Dressed in the dark. Grabbed a granola bar. The Tribune dropped his newspapers at 5:30. Jordan loaded his bag, strapped on his helmet and reflective vest, and pedaled out at 5:45. By 6 o'clock, he was in Brookside delivering to his first houses. The Carter family lived at 2897 Brookside Drive. Jordan started his route at house 2801, working his way up the street. House 2801, then 2805, then 2809, the same routine he'd done for 8 months straight. Officer Marcus Abbott saw Jordan at 6:05, and his brain made assumptions faster than his training should have allowed. Black teenager, bicycle, delivery bag, riding house to house at 6 a.m. in an affluent white neighborhood. Abbott didn't think newspaper delivery. He thought trespassing, casing houses, suspicious. Abbott saw Jordan riding his bike from about half a block away, too far to see details clearly. He saw black teenager, bike, bag, early morning, affluent neighborhood. His brain jumped to conclusion. Suspicious. Abbott pulled up fast without observing what Jordan was actually doing. By the time he was close enough to see newspapers, he'd already decided Jordan didn't belong. Jordan was at house 2837, just 3 houses down from his own home at 2897, when Abbott pulled over at 6:07 and got out. Jordan stopped his bike, confused. He was wearing a bright reflective vest with safety printed across the back in huge letters. He had a delivery bag with the Chicago Tribune logo on the side in red and blue letters 6 inches tall. Newspapers were sticking out of the bag top. His bike had a front basket with more newspapers visible. Everything about him screamed newspaper carrier, but the officer's expression said Jordan had done something wrong. The tone said Jordan was in trouble, and Jordan's stomach dropped because he recognized that look. He'd seen it before, on his mother's face when she talked about cases at work, on the news when they showed videos of traffic stops gone wrong. That look that said, "I've already decided who you are, and nothing you say will change my mind." "Hey, stop right there," Abbott said, walking toward him fast, hand already resting on his belt near his handcuffs. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" Jordan's heart started pounding. The question didn't make sense. What was he doing? He was delivering newspapers. It was 6 in the morning. He was wearing a reflective vest. He had a bag full of papers. What else could he possibly be doing? "I'm delivering newspapers, sir," Jordan said, keeping his voice calm and respectful the way his mother had taught him. "Always say, sir, always stay calm, always keep your hands visible." "I have a route. I've been delivering here for 8 months. Abbott's expression didn't soften. It hardened. Jordan could see it in his eyes. The officer had already made up his mind. The words coming out of Jordan's mouth weren't registering. They were just noise. "At 6 a.m., Abbott said, his tone dripping with skepticism. "In this neighborhood? I don't think so, kid." Jordan felt fear creeping up his spine. This wasn't right. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He delivered to this street dozens of times. He knew people here. Mrs. Henderson at 2847 always left her porch light on for him. Mr. Patel at 2891 had given him a $20 tip at Christmas. Mrs. Washington walked her dog past him every morning and waved. This was his route. He belonged here. Jordan held up his delivery bag with both hands so Abbott could see the logo clearly. The Chicago Tribune, right there, impossible to miss. "I do this every morning, sir," Jordan said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. "I can show you my delivery list. I have 47 houses on my route. This is house 2837. I deliver to 2841 next, then 2845, then—" Abbott cut him off. "Drop the bag. Show me some ID. Right now." Jordan's hands started shaking. ID? He was 15. He didn't have a driver's license. He had a school ID in his backpack at home. But why would he need ID? He was delivering newspapers in a reflective vest, with a bag that had the newspaper name printed on it, with actual newspapers visible inside the bag. What more proof did this officer need? I'm 15, sir," Jordan said, his voice quieter now, fear overriding his attempt to stay calm. "I don't have a driver's license, but I have my school ID at home. And I can show you my delivery list right here in my bag, and I can tell you every house on my route. And my mom works for the FBI. She's Agent Sarah Carter. She lives right down the street at 2897. I can call her, and she can—" "Don't reach for anything," Abbott snapped, his hand moving to his handcuffs. His voice was sharp, threatening. "Put your hands where I can see them, right now." Jordan's brain screamed at him to comply. He raised his hands slowly, still gripping his bike's handlebars, because letting go would mean dropping the bike, and he didn't want to give the officer any reason to think he was being aggressive or hostile or anything other than a scared 15-year-old trying not to get hurt. "Please, sir," Jordan's voice cracked slightly. "I'm just delivering newspapers. That's all I'm doing. I do this every morning. I've never been in trouble. I've never done anything wrong. Please." Abbott's jaw tightened. The kid was making this difficult, making a scene, and now there was a witness. Down the street, Helen Washington was walking her golden retriever like every morning. She saw the police car, she saw Jordan. And when she saw Abbott's hand move to his handcuffs, she pulled out her phone and started recording. Abbott grabbed Jordan's arm. "Turn around, hands behind your back." "What? No, I didn't do anything." Abbott spun Jordan around and slammed him face first against a parked Ford Explorer. Jordan's bike crashed to the ground. Newspapers spilled across the street. Jordan felt cold metal against his cheek and Abbott's hand pressing down on his back. Helen started running. "Officer, stop. That's Jordan Carter. He delivers newspapers." Abbott looked up, saw an elderly woman with her phone raised. He didn't back down. "Ma'am, step back. This is police business." "That boy delivers my newspaper every morning," Helen said, her voice sharp. "His mother is FBI Special Agent Sarah Carter. Let him go." Abbott pulled Jordan's arms behind his back and locked handcuffs around his wrists. The metal bit into Jordan's skin. Too tight. Jordan started crying. "Mom," Jordan called out, voice breaking. "Mom, please." Abbott turned to Helen. "Ma'am, I need you to step back." Helen stood her ground, phone still recording. "His mother is FBI. She lives right down the street. You just handcuffed a 15-year-old newspaper carrier." Abbott's jaw tightened. He grabbed Jordan by the arm and walked him to the patrol car. Jordan was crying harder now, shoulders shaking. "I live here. I deliver newspapers. Please, I didn't do anything." Abbott opened the back door, pushed Jordan inside. Jordan's head hit the doorframe. Abbott slammed the door and got in the driver's seat. Helen was already dialing Sarah Carter. Inside her kitchen, Sarah Carter was pouring coffee. It was 6:12, her first day off in 2 weeks. She'd heard Jordan leave at 5:45 like always. She'd watched from the window as he pedaled down the driveway with his delivery bag and his father's old helmet, and she'd felt the same mixture of pride and heartbreak she felt every morning, watching her son do the job his father had taught him to value. Sarah Carter had been with the FBI for 16 years. She'd started as a field agent right out of Quantico, worked violent crimes, organized crime, white-collar fraud, and then found her calling in the Civil Rights Division. She investigated violations of federal civil rights laws, police misconduct, hate crimes, discriminatory practices by institutions. She'd interviewed victims. She'd reviewed body cam footage. She'd testified in federal court. She'd seen patterns of abuse that departments tried to hide. She'd exposed cover-ups. She'd held people accountable. She knew how these things happened. She knew how officers made assumptions. She knew how bias worked. She knew that the system protected officers who shouldn't be protected. She'd spent 16 years fighting that system. She'd prosecuted cops who abused their power. She'd written reports that ended careers. She'd stood in courtrooms and shown juries exactly what racism in policing looked like. But she'd never imagined it would touch her own son. Then she heard shouting from the street. Close. Too close. Her kitchen window faced Brookside Drive, and the sound was coming from right outside. Sarah's FBI training kicked in before her mother's instinct. She moved to the window strategically, staying to the side where she could see without being immediately visible. What she saw made every bit of her professional composure evaporate. 3 houses down, at 2837, a police car. Her son being shoved into the back seat, handcuffed, his hands behind his back. Newspapers scattered across the street like confetti, his bicycle lying on its side, front wheel still spinning, and Helen Washington from down the street standing on the sidewalk with her phone raised, recording. Sarah's brain processed it in fragments. Jordan, handcuffs, police, newspapers on the ground, her 15-year-old son who'd been delivering papers for 8 months, her son who woke up at 5:30 every morning to help pay bills, her son who'd never been in trouble. Her son who was wearing a reflective vest and had a newspaper bag with a logo and had been doing his job. Sarah didn't grab her phone, didn't grab her shoes, didn't grab her FBI jacket or her service weapon or anything that would have been protocol in any other situation. She just ran. Sarah didn't think. She ran out the front door in sweatpants and an old FBI Academy t-shirt she'd gotten years ago during training, with her FBI badge still clipped to the waistband from when she'd come home yesterday. The patrol car was pulling away. Sarah sprinted into the street and held up her hand. Stop the car. Now. Abbott hit the brakes. He saw a black woman in FBI gear standing in front of his cruiser. Sarah walked to the driver's window. Abbott rolled it down. Ma'am, you need to move. I have a suspect in custody. Sarah leaned down, eye level with the officer. Her voice was quiet and lethal. That suspect is my son. Uncuff him and let him out right now. The officer looked at her. FBI shirt, FBI badge. The kid had been telling the truth. Ma'am, my name is Special Agent Sarah Carter, FBI Civil Rights Division. That's my 15-year-old son. He was delivering newspapers. You just assaulted and falsely arrested him. The officer looked in his mirror. Jordan was in the back seat, crying, handcuffed, face pressed against the window. You thought what? Sarah's words were sharp. She leaned closer to read his name tag. Officer Abbott? Abbott didn't answer. Get out. Uncuff my son. Give me your badge number. Abbott got out slowly, hands shaking. He opened the back door. Jordan fell out, still crying. Sarah caught him and held him close. Abbott unlocked the handcuffs. They fell away. Jordan's wrists had deep red marks. Sarah held Jordan while he shook. She could see newspapers scattered across the street. His bicycle lying there, Helen still recording. Sarah looked at Abbott. Badge number 4156. Officer Marcus Abbott, badge 4156. Sarah's voice was ice. You saw my son in a reflective vest with a newspaper bag with a logo. You saw newspapers sticking out, and you still decided he was a criminal because he's black. Abbott stood silent. You're done, Sarah said. You assaulted a minor, falsely arrested him, ignored evidence. My son has been delivering papers for 8 months to help pay bills his father left when he died. You attacked a 15-year-old for honoring his father's work ethic. You're done. Helen walked over. Agent Carter, I have everything recorded. Sarah nodded. Send it to me. Thank you, Helen. By 6:30, Abbott's supervisor had arrived. By 7, Abbott was ordered back to the station. By 8, he was on administrative leave. By noon, Helen's video had 8 million views. The video showed everything. The timestamp in the corner marked every second. Abbott's patrol car pulling up at 6:07:15. Jordan stopping his bike at 6:07:22. Abbott approaching at 6:07:28. Jordan holding up his delivery bag at 6:07:45. The Chicago Tribune logo clearly visible even in the early morning light. Abbott ordering him to drop it at 6:08:03. Jordan's mouth moving. You could see him speaking, but Helen was too far away for clear audio, trying to explain. Abbott grabbing him at 6:08:34. The struggle. Jordan's bike crashing to the ground at 6:08:41. Newspapers scattering across the pavement. Abbott slamming Jordan against the Ford Explorer at 6:08:47. The sound of Jordan crying. Abbott pulling Jordan's arms behind his back at 6:08:52. The handcuffs clicking shut at 6:08:58. And then Helen's voice, clear and sharp. "Officer, what are you doing? That's Jordan Carter. He delivers newspapers." Abbott turning toward her. "Ma'am, step back. This is police business." Helen not stepping back. "That boy delivers my newspaper every single morning. His mother is FBI, Special Agent Sarah Carter. You need to let him go right now." Abbott handcuffing a 15-year-old. "I'll determine what's happening here." Jordan's voice breaking. Mom, please." The video showed Abbott walking Jordan to the patrol car while newspapers lay scattered in the street. It showed Jordan's reflective vest. It showed the Tribune logo on his bag. It showed Helen standing there recording while Abbott shoved a crying teenager into the back of a police car. And it showed, in the final seconds, Sarah Carter running out of her house in FBI gear 3 houses down. The internet didn't just share the video, they dissected it, frame by frame. They zoomed in on the Chicago Tribune logo. They circled the reflective vest. They highlighted the timestamps. They created side-by-side comparisons showing newspaper delivery versus what Abbott claimed he saw. They found Abbott's department photo. They found his name. They found his badge number. And then they found his history. Someone submitted a public records request for Abbott's personnel file at 9 a.m. By 2 p.m., they had it. 5 formal complaints over 9 years, all filed by Black or Latino residents, all in affluent neighborhoods, all claiming Abbott had made racially biased stops, all investigated and dismissed. The pattern was undeniable, and now it was public. Twitter exploded. Facebook erupted. Instagram filled with reposts. TikTok users created reaction videos. News aggregators picked it up. Local news stations interrupted regular programming. National networks called. By Sunday evening, the story was on every major outlet. The hashtag Justice for Jordan wasn't just trending. It was dominating. Celebrities shared it. Athletes shared it. Politicians shared it. Parents shared it with captions like, "This could have been my son," and "How many times does this have to happen?" The Naperville Police Department's phone lines didn't just collapse, they melted down. Thousands of calls. Emails flooded the department's public inbox. Their social media accounts became battlegrounds. People showed up at the station demanding Abbott's firing. The mayor's office was inundated. The city council members couldn't check their voicemail without hearing dozens of angry messages. And through it all, the video kept spreading. 8 million views by noon Saturday, 20 million by midnight, 35 million by Sunday afternoon, 50 million by Monday morning. Sarah held a press conference Monday. She stood at a podium with Jordan beside her. Every major news outlet had sent reporters. Cameras lined the back wall. The room was packed beyond capacity. Jordan kept his eyes down, still processing, still scared. Sarah kept her hand on his shoulder. When she spoke with the calm, measured precision of someone who had spent 16 years in courtrooms and crime scenes and interrogation rooms. But underneath that precision was a mother's fury that no amount of professional training could fully contain. "My name is Special Agent Sarah Carter, and I've been with the FBI's Civil Rights Division for 16 years. I've investigated over 200 cases of police misconduct. I've interviewed victims. I've reviewed body cam footage. I've analyzed patterns of abuse. I've testified in federal court about how racial bias manifests in policing. I've written reports that ended careers and exposed cover-ups. I know how these cases work. I know the language. I know the patterns. I know the excuses." She paused. The room was completely silent. But nothing I've seen in 16 years prepared me for watching my own son be assaulted. Sarah's voice remained steady, but her grip on Jordan's shoulder tightened slightly. My son was assaulted for the crime of being black while working. He was wearing a reflective safety vest with "safety" printed across the back in letters 6 inches tall. He was carrying a delivery bag with the Chicago Tribune logo printed on the side. He had newspapers visible in the bag. He was on a bicycle. At 6 a.m., doing a job he's held for 8 months. A job where he wakes up at 5:30 every single morning to help me pay bills because his father died and left us with medical debt. A job where he gives me $430 every month for groceries. A job where he's trying to be the man his father taught him to be. She looked directly at the cameras. Officer Abbott saw all of that. The vest, the bag, the newspapers, the Tribune logo. He watched my son try to explain. He heard my son offer to show his delivery list. He heard a neighbor confirm that Jordan delivers newspapers every morning. And none of it mattered. Officer Abbott had already decided my son was a criminal and no amount of evidence was going to change his mind. Sarah's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. I prosecuted officers for exactly this kind of conduct. I know what this is. This is racial profiling. This is bias overriding basic observation. This is an officer seeing a black teenager in an affluent neighborhood and deciding, without any legitimate basis, that the child must be committing a crime. And when presented with overwhelming evidence to the contrary, a reflective vest, a newspaper bag with a logo, visible newspapers, a delivery list, a witness confirmation, Officer Abbott didn't reconsider. He escalated. She paused again. My son is 15 years old. He's a sophomore in high school. He's never been in trouble. He's never been arrested. He's on the honor roll. He volunteers at our church. And on Saturday morning, while doing his job, he was slammed against a car, handcuffed, and shoved into a police cruiser while newspapers from his delivery bag lay scattered in the street. Sarah's jaw tightened. This is not an isolated incident. Officer Abbott has 5 complaints on his record. 5 separate occasions over 9 years where Black and Latino residents told the Naperville Police Department that he was targeting them based on race. 5 times they filed formal complaints. 5 times they documented what happened. 5 times they asked the department to hold him accountable. And 5 times the department dismissed those complaints without adequate investigation. They had the pattern documented. They had the warning signs. They had multiple people telling them that Officer Abbott was a problem. And they did nothing. She looked down at Jordan, then back at the cameras. And now, because no one held him accountable, my 15-year-old son has bruises on his wrists. He has nightmares. He's afraid to leave the house. He flinches when he sees police cars. And every time he looks at the scars the handcuffs left, he's going to remember that he was punished for being black while helping his family. Sarah's voice turned to steel. I am recusing myself from any prosecutorial role in this case because I am not just an FBI agent right now. I am a mother, but I want to be very clear. This will be investigated. Officer Abbott will be held accountable, and the Naperville Police Department will answer for why they ignored 5 warnings before my son became the 6th. She stepped back from the podium and looked at the press corps. A badge is not permission to ignore evidence standing right in front of you, and my son deserves justice. The room erupted with questions. Sarah didn't answer them. She took Jordan's hand and walked out, leaving one final image that would be replayed on every news station for the next week. An FBI agent and her son, walking away together while reporters shouted questions they didn't answer. Within 2 weeks, Abbott was terminated. Within a month, criminal charges were filed. Assault on a minor, false arrest, deprivation of rights, official misconduct. Abbott's trial came 9 months later. The prosecution showed Helen's video, Abbott's body cam, Jordan's medical records, and testimony from previous complaint filers. The defense claimed Abbott acted in good faith. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated 90 minutes before returning guilty on all counts. Abbott was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 4 years probation. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. Sarah filed a federal civil rights lawsuit seeking $1.3 million. The city settled within 6 months. Sarah used part of the settlement to establish the Jordan Carter Legal Defense Fund, providing legal support and advocacy for children experiencing police violence. The FBI investigated the Naperville Police Department and found 5 officers with similar complaint patterns. 2 were removed from patrol. The department was placed under a 3-year consent decree requiring federal oversight. Mandatory reforms included quarterly bias training, requirements that officers state reasons for stops on body cam, independent review of all complaints by a civilian board, and a ban on stops based solely on presence in a neighborhood. 5 years later, Jordan is 20 and a junior at Northern Illinois University studying criminal justice. He still has scars on his wrists where the handcuffs cut into his skin. 2 thin white lines that catch the light when he turns his hands a certain way. They're faint now, but they're permanent. He spent 18 months in therapy working through PTSD, anxiety, and nightmares about being slammed against the car and not being able to breathe and calling for his mother and not knowing if she'd come. But Jordan has also become an advocate. He speaks at high schools about racial profiling and police accountability. He's testified before the Illinois State Legislature about protecting minors during police encounters. He's shared his story at civil rights conferences, police reform workshops, and community town halls. He's spoken to rooms of 20 people and rooms of 2,000 people. And every time he tells his story, he makes sure people understand. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was working. He was helping his family. He was being the man his father taught him to be. And that should never be a crime. Jordan has met with other families who've experienced similar incidents. Parents whose children were stopped while walking home from school. Teenagers who were detained while waiting for the bus. Kids who were handcuffed for being in their own neighborhoods. He listens to their stories. He shares resources. He connects them with lawyers. He tells them they're not alone. The Jordan Carter Legal Defense Fund, established with part of his settlement, has helped 347 families in 5 years. It's provided legal representation for children facing wrongful arrests. It's paid for therapy for kids dealing with trauma from police encounters. It's funded educational programs, teaching young people their rights during police stops. It's trained community advocates to document incidents and support affected families. And it's recovered over $4.2 million in settlements and damages for families who were told they had no case. Jordan wants to be a civil rights attorney. He's already been accepted into several law school programs. He wants to represent children and families facing discrimination. He wants to use the law to create change so that no other 15-year-old gets handcuffed for delivering newspapers. So that no other mother has to watch her son be assaulted for working an honest job. So that no other family has to fight alone against a system designed to protect the officers who hurt them. Jordan doesn't deliver papers anymore. The family is financially stable now. Sarah was promoted to supervisory special agent. The settlement paid off the medical debt. Jordan has a full scholarship funded by the Legal Defense Fund. But Jordan still sets 3 alarms every morning. Not because he needs to wake up early, but because some habits are burned into you. Some routines become part of who you are. And when Jordan wakes at 5:30, sometimes out of habit, when he lies there in the dark before his second alarm goes off, he thinks about his father, about Michael Carter's lessons on work ethic and responsibility and doing the right thing even when it's hard, about being the kind of man who helps his family and honors his commitments and doesn't quit when things get tough, about the newspaper route that was supposed to be a simple job to help with bills and became the catalyst for a civil rights case that changed police policies across the state. Jordan thinks about the morning Officer Marcus Abbott saw a black teenager working and assumed he was a criminal, about how that assumption cost Abbott everything and gave Jordan a purpose, about how the worst morning of his life became the foundation for helping hundreds of other families, about how trauma can be transformed into advocacy, about how pain can be turned into progress. And then Jordan's second alarm goes off, and he gets up, and he goes to class, and he studies criminal law and constitutional rights and civil procedure, and he knows exactly why he's doing it. Because 5 years ago, a police officer refused to believe that a black child could be working an honest job in an affluent neighborhood. Because the system protected that officer until the evidence was undeniable. Because his mother fought back. Because a neighbor recorded everything. Because sometimes justice actually prevails. And when it does, Jordan wants to be the person who makes sure it keeps prevailing. Officer Marcus Abbott served his full 2 years in prison. He was released on probation in 2027. He can't find stable employment. Background checks reveal his conviction for assaulting a minor. His name is the first result when you search for police violence against working children. He lives in a different state, working odd jobs, trying to avoid recognition. But the video follows him everywhere. Helen Washington is 71 now. She still lives in Brookside. She still walks her dog at 6 a.m., and she still talks about the morning she pulled out her phone and refused to stay silent. The case is used in law enforcement training nationwide as a demonstration of what happens when officers operate on assumptions instead of evidence, when complaints are ignored, when bias overrides training, and when children are treated like criminals for working hard while black. A 15-year-old boy delivering newspapers in his own neighborhood should never be handcuffed by a cop who refused to see evidence right in front of him. A badge doesn't grant permission to ignore a reflective vest, a newspaper bag, and a child trying to help his widowed mother. And racial profiling has a cost. It costs careers. It costs freedom. It costs cities millions. And most importantly, it costs children their sense of safety. If you believe a teenager should be able to work without being assaulted by a cop who made racist assumptions, share this story. What reforms do you think every police department needs? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this reminded you that hard work should be honored, not punished, and that children deserve better than being treated like criminals for helping their families, subscribe, because we're not stopping until every child can earn an honest living without fear.